Oh, baby, do we have things to talk about here on the Dubs Talk podcast with the one and only Monte Poole, our Warriors insider, Hall of Famer, two-time Emmy Award-winning insider here at NBC Sports Bay Area. I am Bonta Hill, of course, your host for Warriors Pre- and Post-Game Live and all things at NBC Sports Bay Area. Do not forget, before we get into this, because the Warriors are on a two-game losing streak, the Dubs Talk podcast is always brought to you by Mancini Sleep Roll. Go ahead and check out the year-end clearance on at Mancini Sleep Roll. Shop sleeproll.com, sleeproll.com. It is happening right now with some of the biggest savings of the season. Beauty Rest Queen mattresses are starting at only $299. Casper mattresses starting at $495. Plus, you can get 0% financing, including on Tempur-Pedic, starting at only $29 a month. It's the perfect time to upgrade your sleep for the new year. So you want to do that because sleep is important, and hopefully the Warriors are sleeping good. But I don't know how good after those two losses over the weekend. Friday night against Minnesota without Anthony Edwards in a game in which Rudy Gobert has 8 dunks. They get outscored in the fourth quarter, 39-29. Give up a 17-0 run. They fight to get back into it. And, of course, Minnesota ends the game going away. And then you get Portland. The Portland Trail Blazers, who have 10 wins on the season. 3 of them have come against the Golden State Warriors because the Warriors cannot beat the Blazers. They've lost all 3 matchups this season, giving up over 133 points in each of those or on the average over 133 points in those matchups. And last night, Shaedon Sharpe, Denny Avia, Jeremy Grant combined to score 96 points. 96 points. They were 30 of 56 from the floor. Portland shoots 51% from the three-point line to offset another historic night, a magical night by the chef, Steph Curry, who dropped 48 points, 33 coming in the second half. He surpassed Michael Jordan as a player over 30 to have over 45 40-point games. That's right. It was the 45th time Steph Curry has dropped 40-plus points in a game since he's turned 30. No other player has done that in NBA history. He just surpassed the great Michael Jeffrey Jordan, 12 and 19 from the three-point line. On the night he was celebrating his anniversary, it's 4 years to the day, Monty, in which he became the three-point king at Madison Square Garden back in 2021. Yet the Warriors lose 136-131, and it's the same old thing. But it's a little more nuanced than that. Turnovers, put in attack defense, blow-bys, wide open shots. This is who they are at 13-14. You are what your record says you are, and it's less. There's some big-time shakeups with this roster. Monty, I feel like we're going to be seeing the same exact thing over the next couple months.
If Steph broke down and started crying after the game last night, would you blame him?
Absolutely not.
I mean, the dude goes out and torches the Timberwolves in the fourth quarter, and the Warriors lose the lead and lose the game. He goes out and torches the Trail Blazers in the fourth quarter, and the Warriors lose the game. The defense is letting them down. Now, Steph is not the best defender in the league. He makes defensive plays periodically. But watching the Warriors let the Blazers, the worst three-point shooting team in the league, 30th out of 30 teams, shooting 32.8% from three, ring it up at better than 50% from deep. What's happening? It starts at the point of attack. Guys are breaking into the paint, and drivers and the defense collapse. And next thing you know, you got Jeremy Grant wide open in the corner, the easiest three-point shot on earth. And you get, whether it's Denny Avia, whether it's Sharpe, there's somebody driving and just kick it out, and you got Jeremy Grant shooting a practice three-pointer. Like he's the only guy on the court because nobody within 8 feet of him. It happened in the first quarter. It happened on the first play of the game, first possession of the game. And I thought, okay, here we go again. Giving up the open three because penetration is breaking down the defense.
Yep.
And it happened twice in the fourth quarter when the Warriors had a 10-point lead.
109-99. 109-99.
It happened twice, yes.
Yep.
Blazers got a bucket, and then two possessions in a row.
Yep, wide open warm-up three. Warm-up
three. The league is at 8. And when Jeremy Grant got through making those practice three-pointers, the lead was 2. Momentum swung. And no matter what Steph did, it wasn't going to be enough because those guys were rolling and the defense let them down again. So the Warriors' number 4 rated defense feels like such an illusion.
You know what, Monty? Can I stop you right there?
It's just a rating.
Yeah.
But you see what happens, though. Look deeper into it. I'll get to that. Go ahead. Because I got some more to say about this.
Yeah, no, that number 4 rating is a joke. What does our eyes tell us? Our eyes tell us that they can't defend at the point of attack. Our eyes tell us that teams blow by and get easy dunks, easy layups. They get in the paint. This is why the Warriors always lose the points in the paint battle. They're terrible when it comes to that.
Wait a minute. They've won that battle twice this year.
Yeah, twice. Yeah, twice in 27 games. Woo! Let's pop some champagne.
Maybe 3 times. Yeah.
Seriously, our eyes tell us that they're not the number 4 defense in the league. I like these ratings are crazy. I was trying to figure it out yesterday. It's like, why are the Warriors rated so highly? You know what my eyes tell me? Well, we know we're not rated highly against the Blazers. In 3 games against the Blazers, Monty, they've made 16 threes, and last night they made 20. That's 47%, 35.5%, and last night 51%. But I'm going to let you keep cooking because there's a lot here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for allowing me. The thing is this. The problems with the Warriors defense is that, one, yes, it gets broken down too easily, and it leads to open shots. But the defensive rating is looking at, points per 100 possessions. And when you look at what teams do against the Warriors, is those second chance points, a lot of them. Points in the paint, like you said, the Warriors are getting outscored in the paint by an average of 10 points per game. That's not a great defense. That's not a great defense. Teams are getting up more shots against the Warriors, which makes the Warriors defense looks better because more shots means sometimes it lowers the percentage against you. But when you're getting up more shots than your opponent, chances are you're probably going to win. And so they resort to fouling. And they resort and they haven't found a way yet. And they've been trying to do this for over a year. They haven't found a way yet to stop teams from driving and kicking out to those corners. And every single game, there has not been a game this season when their opponent has not got several wide open looks from a corner. And so, DeAnthony Melton is back and he's still trying to find his way. You can tell. He's good, but they need him to be even better because who else is going to be able to do it? GP2 used to be pretty good at this. He hasn't been that good this year. He hasn't been the GP2 that you saw 2 or 3 years ago. And so you can't expect Pat or Potts to be the guy. So that's an issue right there. And so when you look at guys breaking down the Warriors' defense, yeah, they're crashing into the paint. And other guys are collapsing off the corners. And sometimes you have your pick of which corner you want to find a guy. You got a shooter over here, you got a shooter over there. Which one? And so I don't see a quick fix here. And I think if they had one, we would have seen it by now. Again, I think Melt will be better, and that should help. But, yes, that number 4 defensive rating is such a fool's gold kind of thing. It looks good on paper, but when you watch the game and you see what happens, you realize that, again, and I keep saying this, and it's so painfully obvious, the Warriors are small and slow. And it's hard for a defense to be great when it's small and slow.
Monty, real quick, because I don't want to get bogged down into this because I got thoughts about the roster construction, the coaching, some of the lineup combinations. Jonathan Kuminga, who's been a pinata on this when it comes to this fan base in terms of he doesn't fit, he's not good. So he doesn't play the last 2 games. Gets me to just straight up DNPs. That's now 3 straight DNPs from Jonathan Kuminga. Against a team like that, the Blazers, young, athletic, long. Is that a game that he should play in? I mean, Pat Spencer's been starting games, and everybody's getting crazy about Pat Spencer, right? And I like Pat Spencer. Pat Spencer goes from starting Friday night to seeing how many minutes is this? Where's my box score? He played 6 minutes and 45 seconds Sunday in Portland.
Yeah,
6 minutes and 45 seconds. So when we talk about lineups and combinations and rhythm and roles, the Warriors just started their 15 different first five. That's right, 15 different starting lineups this season. They've only played 27 games. That was the 9th straight game in which they had a different starting lineup. 9 games in a row, they've had a different starting lineup. So how the heck can any of these role players get into a rhythm when they don't know what their roles are? Part of that is injuries. I get it. Part of that is Steph was out for 5 games. But Steph said it last night in Portland. We got to figure out some continuity here. We have to get a rotation, and we got to stick to it for a couple weeks here. And that's where Steve Kerr, some of these lineup combinations have been funky. I saw a 3-guard lineup. Melton, Pods, Curry, Spencer, Melton, Curry. Like all these different combinations, like you said, they're small. They're at a disadvantage athletically every single night. Let's just put that in the bag. And you can't win at a high level in the NBA when you're that at a disadvantage in terms of athleticism. And you're a little old. And then one of the oldest guys, Steph Curry, is still playing like he's 27. So I think the roster construction, if we're looking for quick fixes on this roster, I don't think they have the answers on this current roster. And so when it comes to coaching, can Steve Kerr put these guys in a better position? I do think so. Steve Kerr admitted last night, I've got to do my job better. I do believe he needs to do his job better. At 5:30, at the 5:30 mark last night in the fourth quarter, Monty, he pulled Steph and Draymond. I was like, whoa, Warriors are down 116 and 115. However, it didn't bite them in the butt because the bench went on a 6-0 run. So I just think the patterns of the substitutions, the rotations, and then not to mention Jimmy Butler, who we're going to get into, because what I'm saying from Jimmy Butler is not good over the last couple games. Yeah, the Warriors are in some trouble here, Monty. Let's just keep it real. They are in some trouble. And I'm not saying panicking because they're 27 games in, but we're a third of the way through the season. You're 13 and 14. The way they're going, they're going to be playing playoff games back in January with an older roster, and that's not good.
Yeah, and Steve fell on the sword, basically saying, I got to be better. And, there are some things you can poke at with Steve for sure. Like you said, some of the lineups, some of the combinations on the floor. I mean, that was last night. Yeah, there was a point when he had 4 guards out there with Guy Santos at the 5. So it's like, you're trying. And when Draymond was asked about that, he said, look, we're 13 and 14. We haven't had a lineup that has gotten us anywhere where we could say, okay, we can stick with this lineup. You say, or otherwise we wouldn't be 13 and 14, And so I kind of understand what he's saying there by saying that, yeah, Steve is forced to keep trying because nothing has worked for more than 2 or 3 games. Nothing. Pat Spencer had his day in the sun on that road trip, man. He was rolling. Could you start next to Steph? Maybe. He tried that in 1 game against Minnesota, and it worked pretty well. And it wasn't because, Pat wasn't good in that game. I think it was 5 of 13 shooting. He wasn't the same guy. He fell back to earth. But Pat isn't what lost him the game. What lost him the game against the Timberwolves was the bigs. They weren't big enough. The Timberwolves big guys scored 86 points. And then they go to Portland. Crazy. And Portland's wings are killing them. So you've got issues with the lack of speed on the edges. Again, the defense being, getting collapsed because of the blow-bys. And so if you had even one rim protector, legitimate rim protector, you wouldn't see the defense collapse as much because they'd have confidence that the big guy is back there, that Bogut is back there. So you don't have to worry. You're not panicking when somebody gets into the paint. You got a big back there.
Yep.
So, yeah, they have not found a lineup that says this is the one. Well, and so as Draymond was basically saying that You can't just keep putting the same lineup out there if it ain't working. You got to try something different. You got to switch it up.
They have switched it up, Monty. They switched it up 15 different times.
Ways to go.
They've switched it up 15 different times.
Yeah.
15 different times.
And they still don't have anything.
Yeah.
They don't have anything.
So this is where we can blame the coach all we want to. We can blame the coach. And I do think Steve Kerr needs to be better with his rotations and his substitution patterns and his combinations, but also the personnel on the roster. The personnel was vastly overrated in terms of how it fits. We looked at it. They have 8 guards on his roster, Monty.
Yeah, no.
8 guards.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are in their 30s. So you look at a team like Portland who's looking at the Warriors like their food. Again, 96 points between Avia, Sharp, and Grant. And then you get to Jimmy Butler, where you're looking at him saying, all right, where's the impact at? $60 million a year. Where's the impact at? And last night in Portland, 11 field goal attempts, 3 of 11. He salvaged his game by getting to the free throw line, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, but to 16.7 rebounds, 4 assists. Minnesota, there was times I didn't even know if he was playing. I'm dead serious. Where was the impact at? Jimmy and Steve Curry, there was a couple moments in that game where Jimmy just seemed to be
freelancing,
okay with freelancing to the 3-point line, to the corner. And that's where Draymond Green in a game like last night, 8 turnovers, 5 in the second half. Like Monty, 8 turnovers. He had 8 of the 18. Draymond has got to be better with the basketball when it comes to the turnovers because the margin for error on this roster is razor thin, especially in the Western Conference. You don't have KD no more to bail you out. You don't have Clay to bail you out. You don't have Iguodala and Livingston in most spates. This is a different iteration of the Golden State Warriors. And Draymond Green right now, as he was making shots in that first half, all 14 points coming in that first half, he's averaging over 3.5 turnovers a game. 3.2 turnovers a game, I should say. 3.2 turnovers a game. And that's after committing 8 last night in Portland. So he's got to be a better I don't know what the fix is, but the turnovers, the lack of point of attack, defense, and then you got a situation with Kuminga where he's not even playing. I'm looking at the schedule, Monty, and I'm saying to myself, this is just who they are at this point. And fans are going to be outraged. People are going to be outraged. But I tell you one guy, Joe Lacob, he's probably not going to be happy with the way this is playing out because he's not paying for a 500 team.
Yeah. And that's what you got. And at the beginning of this season, there was all this talk about, okay, we got a good mix of youth and vets. We're going to make it work. And, it sounded good. And they come out of the season, they beat the Lakers in the Nuggets in the first week. Like, okay, maybe they got something here. But teams are looking at, the NBA studies, man. They look at these games and they see how the Warriors are being beaten. And they're going to get a steady diet of that. When Minnesota came in without Anthony Edwards, they said, we got to lean on our bigs because look at that roster over there. Can they really stop our bigs? We saw Draymond struggle with Julius Randle in the playoffs last year. We saw Rudy Gobert getting 8 dunks, 11 and 13 from the field. Rudy Gobert scored 20 points, more than 20 points in one game all season. One game. He got 24 against the Warriors. And Quentin Post being one of the top 5 defenders in the league. Remember that stat where he was a defensive rating was right there with the guys from OKC.
Number 3 at one point.
Yeah.
They said, and now he's getting dunked on.
And then you see Rudy getting dunks, on a dunkathon, and so
8 dunks. 8 dunks.
Yeah. And so it's like you watch them play and you realize their deficiencies, and there is no way to look at this roster and go, yeah, they can get together and go on a run. They got to stop talking about what happened last year when they got Jimmy.
That's over.
Yeah.
And you know what, Monty?
And there was a reason for that.
This is what Mully always said, and I subscribe to it. Were they better or did it just look different? And if you really break down the 23-8 record, I think they were better.
Yeah.
They also caught a lot of breaks during that run, playing teams shorthanded. And that's the other thing. They took advantage of the teams that were shorthanded last season. They're not this year. That's 5 games. Minnesota without Anthony Edwards. Houston without Kevin Durant. Indiana without their top 5 rotational players or whatnot. Milwaukee without Giannis Antetokounmpo. Orlando without Paolo Banchero. They lost all 5 of those games.
Yeah.
They're also 4-5 when Steph Curry scores 30-plus points. So you're not taking advantage of those situations because the roster may not be good enough. So You got the Jonathan Kuminga elephant hanging in the room. Jimmy Butler, what's going to happen with him if they continue to lose? You know what I'm saying? What's going on there? Impact, huh?
He won't be happy.
No, he won't be happy. He won't be happy. So this is just who they are. A playing team in the Western Conference where the expectations should be lower with this roster. And also, when I'm watching Steve Kerr, Monte, and I don't know his situation. Obviously, he can sign an extension. Joe Lacob probably would offer it, but it's starting to feel like this is Steve Kerr's last season. Just my gut is it's starting to feel like he looks a little burnt out. He looks like he's running out of answers with this roster. Some of the rhetoric and some of his language at the podium, in terms of how he's speaking, it feels like we're watching the last season where he's going to be on the sidelines for the Golden State Warriors. And he may sign an extension tomorrow. Who knows? But just what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and some of the body language, it feels like this is the last ride with Steve Kerr.
You're not the first person to get that vibe. I had people tell me before the season that they wouldn't be surprised if this is Steve's last year. And then Steve comes out and says he's not worried about an extension. He's not even thinking about it. And I'm like, yeah, he's trying to decide whether he wants to keep doing this, at least in this situation. I mean, Bob Myers got out in time, okay? And it's a lot, man. It's a lot. You know, Joe wants to win, and he's spending a ton of money to try and win. And there were times when Bob, you know, he and Bob had to butt heads, and Bob had to talk him down, you know.
Right.
And there have been times when Bob had talked him down about Steve.
Yep.
You know, so Bob isn't there anymore. Now it's Mike, and Mike's putting together a roster that you think is gonna work, and it's not working. It's not working.
It's not working.
And Steve is there trying to figure out a way for it to work. And I'm not sure there's a coach that has ever coached that can take a roster like this and make it a champion. I mean, you've got Steph. So, yeah, you got a puncher's chance if you get to the playoffs. And there is some belief in the Warriors locker room that if they just get to the playoffs, their vets can kind of get them where they want to go. But you don't want to limp in at a play-in team. That just means more games to try and get the veterans to where they need to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, is Steve going to come back next year? I wouldn't be surprised based on what I've heard and based on what I'm seeing if he chooses not to.
Yep.
You know, I'd be shocked. And on the other hand, I'd be shocked if he signs an extension.
I would too. I would be too. Yep. That's where I'm at.
Because he's looking at this roster too and knowing that if they can't do it this year, well, with this core, those guys are going to be a year older next year.
Yep.
And how long can Steph keep being spectacular?
He's unbelievable.
You know, I think Steph could play till he's 40.
He's averaging 34 over his last 9 games.
Yeah.
Shooting over 50% from the floor and 40 from 3. I mean,
where's his support?
Where is the support? Watching last night, the way he was cooking, I was like, I hope this doesn't turn out like the Kobe Lakers, where Kobe's getting his and they're not winning games. That's what you don't want to happen. You don't want to happen right now. Right. So there's a lot going on here with the Golden State Warriors, Monte. I know you got a run here. Any last thoughts as they lose these 2 games to Minnesota and Portland? They'll get 3 days off. Then they got 2 straight games with the Phoenix Suns, Thursday and Saturday. Then they'll get another break, play Orlando, and then the Dallas Mavericks on Christmas.
You may recall that last week when they came home from the road, they took 2 days off. They wanted to rest and recuperate. That's fine. And then they went practice 2 days in a row. A really hard scrimmage one day and another little quieter scrimmage the next day. That week, they thought of that week as, okay, let's recalibrate. Let's get our mess together. Mm-hmm. And what have they done since then? Lost 2 games.
Yep.
Minnesota, if they're coming in without Ant, you're like, okay, this is a game they should win. But again, what happens against Minnesota?
17-0 run in the fourth quarter.
You got that right.
5-minute scoring drought. 5-minute scoring drought in the fourth quarter.
At home. Yeah, so both of their teams that they played, Minnesota and Portland, have had these blitzes in the fourth quarter that took the Warriors down. The Warriors had leads in the fourth quarter of both games.
That's the other stat, real quick. They lead the league. They lead the league in blown leads. Yeah. They've got it to the fourth quarter with the lead. They've blown those games 6 times. That's worse than the Washington Wizards. Now, the Wizards don't have a lot of leads, right?
The Wizards are tanking every year.
They're tanking. The Warriors are number 1. They've blown 6 games. So, and then, of course, you got the JK elephant in the room where I'm thinking you were a little more optimistic than me about him playing against Minnesota, maybe, because he did fall out against them. He's got 3 straight DNPs.
Yep.
He couldn't get a second against Portland. A second? Like this thing is
a second ain't gonna get you nothing, man. Come
on. We got a mailbag question out there on Twitter. Go ahead, find us at Warriors NBCS. Ask your questions. I want to hear from the fans on the next podcast. There's a lot of questions, and we will try to find the answers. We'll try to make the solutions, Monty. But right now, I just don't see it with this basketball team at 13 or 14. So when you say, hey, maybe they can get to the playoffs and have a puncher's chance, OKC, baby.
If they get to the playoffs and the old guys are all healthy, they believe they'll have a puncher's chance. And because they got Steph.
Because they have Steph. I get it. He can wreck a series, but
that puncher's chance also requires that they defend in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And you've seen the last 2 games how the fourth quarter went. And the rest of the league has seen how the fourth quarter went in these last 2 games.
Yeah.
And so they're all like, you know what? All we got to do is get into the paint and get fouled, get a bucket, or kick it out to an open shooter, because there will be an open shooter. So it's like, again, small, slow. And so
old.
Show me a sport where small and slow is a good combination.
Yeah. Yep. Listen.
The baseball team that doesn't have enough power, but also can't run the bases.
Right. You got a problem.
In their defense, and they have bad defense too.
But I know we get a lot of comments about you being a hater, me being a hater. There's some people who say I enjoy the Warriors losing. Let me just say, I hate when the Warriors lose. I hate it. I hate responding to it. I hate breaking it down. Because also, just selfishly, if they don't make a deep run to the playoffs, that means my season is over hanging out with Monte, with KB, with Zena, with Mully, with Fezzi. And it's back to baseball, Dalton. You know, I want to see the Warriors make deep runs, man. I lived through the dark ages of Warriors basketball. I lived it. You covered it. I lived it. So to people who think we're enjoying this chaos and them being 13 to 14, there's nothing worse in the NBA than being a mediocre basketball team. And that's who the Warriors are right now, Monty. They're a mediocre basketball team.
Yeah, and while I don't openly root, you're right. I lived through the worst of times. You know, I lived through the Sprewell choking PJ Carlesimo, you know, and then going after Jerome Kersey, you know, in the parking lot. You know, crazy times when they're winning 20 games a year and stuff.
Yeah.
So watching them now tells you, though, that this team doesn't have what it needs to compete at the highest levels. Now, that said, that OKC game at Chase, they were competitive most of that game. They were. They fell apart late. So closing, if they fix the closing, they might be able to go on a run where they can win 5 or 7. But they haven't fixed the closing.
They've got to do it now during the stretch, Monty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the go time.
That Minnesota game, 14 of the next 20 was at Chase Center.
Yeah.
They lost that game at Chase. They've lost this game in Portland. They've got a homestand coming up. They've got to stack wins now. If they don't do it now, Monty, there ain't no playoff talk coming from me. It ain't happening here. And we're going to have some different conversations on the Dubs Talk podcast. All right, buddy. I know you got to run. I got to run. You got the last point here?
Yeah. Jimmy. Do you want him to shoot more? What do you want him to do? Because I think they're not using Jimmy the way they should. And the best Jimmy is Jimmy with the ball in his hands. I think only guys now. What the problem is this: if you got Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond out there, Jimmy and Draymond, ideally, they're a tough fit because Draymond usually has the ball.
Hello.
Draymond has the ball a lot.
Let's be real. JK kind of fits with Jimmy a little better than Draymond in terms of that.
JK wants the ball too, though.
But Jimmy will direct JK to cutting and being in that dunker role and getting them in the right spot. And JK has responded to Jimmy Butler. That we have seen. If Dre has the ball and he's looking at Steph and Dre said, look, I got to do a better job of getting the ball. That's another dynamic there, which is why when the trade was made, I scoffed a bit because I said, ideally, Jimmy's an ISO player. We've never seen him playing this system that Steve Kerr employs. So will Steve Kerr relent a little bit and let Jimmy do his thing and play to more of his strengths, with his having the ball, mid block, driving, and looking for three-point shooters? Problem is you don't have a lot of three-point shooters outside of Steph Curry right now. A lot of guys are breaking from the perimeter. They're going out scoring jobs from the perimeter. So that's something I really want to dive into. We could lead off our podcast on our next episode about the Jimmy dynamic. Because I watched the game over last night, stayed up late and watched it over, just kind of watching Jimmy. And I don't like the signs of where Jimmy's at over these last two games. They've got to fix that. He's making the big money, right? You got to fix that. And last night he was no Robin and Steph's Batman.
I don't know if we could take anything away from this, but, last night Steve Kerr was the only person who spoke outside the locker room. Normally, you get two or three guys speaking after the game, after the locker room. Raymond is pretty good about getting guys out there to speak. In Portland, though, it was all, pretty much locker room stuff, aside from Kerr. Didn't see anything from Jimmy. After the loss to Minnesota, Jimmy was out of the locker room.
He was gone.
Gone. Yeah, and Jimmy he always does his post game in the locker room. He was not there. So, I think this is wearing on him. And I think he may be wondering, okay, is this something I got to do? Or is it, is our defense, because, him and Draymond have been pleading for defense for the whole season. We got to make people feel us. We got to do this, do this, do this. And when I went on that road trip, when Draymond wasn't even there, the defense kind of woke up. They were listening. And then you go these last two games, it's like, so I think Jimmy's lost some of his spirit a little bit. And the question is whether he can get it back. And I think that's what Steve is saying when he's saying, I got to do a better job of getting Jimmy the ball and making sure that he's doing to maximize Jimmy. He has to have the ball. He can't be a standing in the corner three-point shooter.
This is why when we say who won the trade between the Heat and the Warriors, who's in a better position right now to strike and make a deal? I would feel like it's the Miami Heat. They're 14-11, but they're playing at a better pace, and they haven't had Tyler Hero for most of the season. But that's something I want to say for the next podcast, Monty.
Yeah.
I would really want to dive into Jimmy Butler, and that's what we'll do. I know you got to run. I got to run here, but we got to have your mailbag questions, and we're going to dive into the Jimmy Butler dilemma here. What's going on with Jimmy? How can you best maximize Jimmy? Does he fit alongside Draymond Green? All those questions and much, much more on the Dubs Talk podcast. As they have lost 2 games in a row. Don't forget, this podcast is always brought to you by Mancini Sleep World. The year-end clearance is on at Mancini Sleep World. Shop sleepworld.com, sleepworld.com. Beauty Rest Queen mattresses starting at only $299. Casper mattresses at $495. Plus get 0% financing, including on Tempur-Pedic, starting at only $29 a month. It is the perfect time to upgrade your sleep for the new year. For Warriors Insider, Hall of Famer, 2-time Emmy Award-winning Monte Poole here at NBC Sports Bay Area, I am Bonta Hill, and that is it for us. Where do the Warriors go from here? We'll get to Jimmy Butler on our next episode. Till then, folks, take care and enjoy the podcast.